One genre of video I quite enjoyed viewing when I was younger were top 10 videos. Not generic by the numbers stuff like Watch Mojo, but ones that were made by individual YouTubers. It'd always be a fun time seeing how they'd rank stuff that they liked. So I thought, why not make one myself? And why not make one for a series I like, SpongeBob? I thought this might be a bit of a fun idea to do, so here it is. And hey, why not make this a little less formulaic and make it a top 11 video? Anyways, let's not waste any more time. Here's my top 11 favorite SpongeBob episodes. Coming in at the number 11 spot is Fear of a Krabby Patty. There's a lot about this episode that makes it somehow stand out from every other episode from the series. Firstly, the animation has this really nice style that isn't like any other episode. It's like it was done by a guest studio. The plot is pretty funny, that Mr. Krabs is fooled into keeping the Krusty Krab open 24 hours a day to one-up the chum bucket, but leads to SpongeBob going insane from exhaustion. To deal with this, SpongeBob attends therapy that's just a trap set up by Plankton, but in the end it doesn't work out for Plankton. The gags in this episode are hilarious, and the dialogue is something that I'm always quoting in my head. Therapy doesn't work! You're still sick! Very, very sick! Overall, this episode is just a solid one amongst my favorites. Also, for some reason, whenever I think of it, I think about how I never had the home media release of it as a kid, but I did buy the DVD copy once, as well as Nautical Nonsense, to give to a friend as a birthday present at a bowling alley in 4th grade. Anyways, I want to talk about the next entry, so I'll move on. In 10th spot is Krusty Towers. This episode I can say is genuinely just extremely funny. The plot is that Mr. Krabs turns the Krusty Krab into a hotel and it backfires for him. So many memorable bits, so much that makes me laugh in this episode. Some of the stuff I still wonder how did they get away with it. I never understood fully the bit about SpongeBob and Mr. Krabs with Squidward's mom's laundry, but in hindsight, it just makes me laugh. This episode is also nice in the regard that Squidward is put through shit in this episode at the beginning, but he's able to give Mr. Krabs his comeuppance for his behavior. It's definitely satisfying to watch in that regard. Also, the ending joke is just really funny. In number 9 is the first Halloween episode of the series, Scaredy Pants. I always associate this with the Halloween SpongeBob VHS/DVD. Anyways, this episode is just great for a lot of reasons. It's the first appearance of the Flying Dutchman, and he has a hilarious role in this. SpongeBob's whole arc of attempting to be scary and then ending up being terrifying for the wrong reason is gold. Both SpongeBob and Patrick are at their best together in this episode, I think. A lot of the other jokes are memorable too. Overall, this episode is just an amazingly solid experience. I really recommend watching this during Halloween, or at least close to that day. And here's the number 8 spot. Christmas Who, what a great episode. I remember how excited I was to watch this episode as a kid. Where I live, Nickelodeon would only air it on Christmas Day, and usually on Christmas Day when I was younger, I'd be too busy spending time at relatives' houses to be tuning in to watch cartoons. So, I can't begin to describe my excitement when I found the SpongeBob Christmas DVD at a supermarket one day. This episode is just the perfect Christmas episode. It somehow breaks both the Santa is real and actually visits the characters cliché, while also playing into that with a gag at the end. I like Squidward's arc a lot in this. It's just enjoyable to see him redeem himself after being an ass. Also, this is the first ever appearance of Patchy the Pirate. That's pretty monumental. His stuff is so funny in this episode. I always lose it at the free ice cream joke. The song Very First Christmas is one of my favorite musical numbers of the series too. The jokes in this are just so hilarious, and I mean, this is where sad SpongeBob is from. I just love this episode a lot. Like with Scaredy Pants, make sure to watch this during the appropriate holiday, or when it's approaching. And in 7th is Party Pooper Pants. Now, this is one episode where I don't expect it to end up on that many people's top lists, but I have a real soft spot for it. There's just so many good jokes in this one that make me want to rank it this high. From SpongeBob's special comb, to breaking into his own house, to the starting part at the bargain mart. Anytime I recall anything from this episode, chances are it'll be something that I found funny. Also, Underwater Sun is my favorite SpongeBob song. Oh, and Patchy is back in this episode. He's really funny in this too. The fact he hosts a party that goes as disastrous for him as SpongeBob's party was for SpongeBob, it's a funny parallel. I also would lose it as a kid when the infomercial joke would show up. Whenever I think about this episode nowadays, I think about how I was talking to my girlfriend about this episode, which somehow was one of the only classic SpongeBob episodes that they didn't remember ever seeing. So I went out of my way to show her because I liked this episode that much. She did like it a lot, I'm glad to say. Hey all you people, hey all you people, hey all you people, won't you listen to me? I just watched an episode, no ordinary episode, an episode about jellyfish jelly. Yeah, this episode is one of the greats. I think the animation and visual gags are at a real peak for early SpongeBob here. It's just really visually pleasing. This, like Krusty Towers, is another satisfying episode in terms of Mr. Krabs getting more than he bargains for in the end. I think it's fair to say he's straight up evil in this episode. So, like I said, he gets more than he deserves in the end, and that's good. I guess this episode is really cool too because SpongeBob stands up for what is right. It really shows the virtue of his character, that if he realizes something that he's doing is in the wrong, he'll do his best to put things right. And when he does, it's a whole lot of fun to watch. Cap that off with some amazing, memorable visual gags and overall hilariously written dialogue, and you've got a fantastic episode, certainly worthy of anyone's favourite SpongeBob episode list. Ah, Frankendoodle. Oh man, what a classic episode. First of all, I want to say I love all of the live-action gags in classic SpongeBob. So many of these jokes are extremely memorable. Anyways, the premise of a giant pencil that's somehow magic is pretty funny. There's a lot of funny bits that they make with it. The fact it can create life is so mind-numbing that I can't help but laugh. The whole Doodlebob thing is enjoyable to watch too. It keeps you on your toes, unsure of how SpongeBob and Patrick are going to resolve the danger they've created. I wish I had more to say, but once again, all I know is that this episode is really funny and quotable, has funny visuals, and a nice ending. Certainly deserving of the number 5 spot. Well, I'm not sure if many would expect an episode like this to be so high up on my list, but I gotta say, I personally enjoyed this one a ton. Firstly, I want to point out the live action gag in this episode. There's something so simple yet hilarious about it. It's always been really memorable to me. Anyways, this episode just is very solid, a funny experience, and I can't help but rank it so high. The synopsis for this is that, in short, SpongeBob becomes a lifeguard despite not knowing how to be a lifeguard or even swim. Larry is a great character and he's really utilized his best here. SpongeBob wanting to be a cool lifeguard leads to so much funny stuff happening that even just thinking about this episode in hindsight makes me smile. This one is definitely one I recommend rewatching if you haven't seen it in a while. Oh, the Fry Cook games, what a damn amazing episode. This is a bit of a random thing to point out, but the 3D rendered stadium in the beginning looks so funny. Early SpongeBob doesn't have that much 3D rendered stuff, but whenever it does show up, it has something unintentionally really funny about it. It's difficult to explain. Anyways, this episode has so much to enjoy about it. So many quotable lines and memorable moments, great visual gags, and you could say too that this episode has some actual world building with the delving into Mr. Krabs and Plankton's past years participating in the games. And really, the entire premise of this episode is so stupid that it's genius. It's the Olympics, but for fry cooks, and the events are all food themed. This setup is something that I think I can say that only SpongeBob would be able to pull off and actually make it genuinely funny. Seeing SpongeBob and Patrick's dynamic is a lot of fun, from their gaslighting from their respective coaches, to their bitterness, to their realization. This episode is definitely a satisfying watch when it comes to character dynamics too. Overall, there's just so much great about this episode. Just go out and watch it. We've already reached the number 2 spot, and Wet Painters easily takes that spot. This was always a childhood favourite episode of mine, and even as an adult, it evidently is still one I immensely enjoy. Wet Painters somehow made the premise of painting a house into something actually thrilling and hilarious. SpongeBob and Patrick are so excited for their super special secret assignment. It's so good. All the hallmarks of an amazing episode are here. Memorable jokes, quotable lines, funny visual gags, and great character interactions. There's so many fake out jokes and every one of them get me in this. And the ending is great too, to top it off. I don't want to spoil any particular jokes or anything, so I'll stop here. Just go out and watch this episode when you can, please. Before I get to number 1, I want to mention a few episodes that I'd consider to be honourable mentions, those being As Seen on TV, Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy 6, Dying for Pie, and Snowball Effect. All 4 of these are just as worth watching as my other favourites, just not top 11 worthy. And now, onto the numbers 1 spot. You know, it'd be fitting if I did the whole da 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 thing to build the climacticness of this, but I don't want to waste any more time. Fittingly though, my favourite episode is Krusty Krab training video, where that joke comes from. Who would have thought? Regardless, this episode is so much packed into 11 minutes, it's always stood out to me as a special episode, and for good reason. It doesn't follow a conventional plot like any other episode. It's exactly what the title advertises. It's a Krusty Krab training video. Seeing every aspect of the Krusty Krab working life was so cool to me as a kid, and now I can appreciate all the jokes through a different lens. There's so many gags I can't get over how good they are. There's just so much to enjoy. This is the type of episode that when I'm out during the day, I'll stop and think, I really wish I wasn't here right now, and I was watching SpongeBob instead. I guess it's convenient how this episode and Wet Painters aired together, huh? That was not an intentional thing on my part in these episodes' ranking, but damn, Krusty Krab training video is just so good. And with that, I've finished my list. I hope my thoughts were something enough to inspire at least some people to go and rewatch these episodes, or just any classic SpongeBob in general. Treat yourself to it because it truly is something special. Feel free to share your thoughts on what your favourite SpongeBob episodes are in the comments. I'll be interested in reading them. Thanks to everyone who watched this video, and bye for now.